It's here, folks. GreenStalk's latest product, the Seed Starting Kit. So today is January 22nd, 2025. We will go ahead and do a quick unboxing of the Seed Starting Kit, and I'll show you all the features. And I'll also talk about some of the questions that I had and the answers that I now have to them. I'm also going to be showing you how I plan my GreenStalks. The summer growing season is almost upon us, and I've got to get my starts going. So I'm going to show you how I think about structuring my plants on the GreenStalks so that they have maximum chances of success. All right, now let's look at the seed starting tray itself. You've got 6 of these, each has 6 cells, and it sits on a tray. And the tray under it has slits at the bottom, so you can actually bottom water. You pour your water in this tray, and you allow this to sit here and absorb water from the bottom, and that is really essential because it helps keep the upper layers of the soil relatively dry, which is so essential to prevent fungus disease and pathogens and that kind of thing, which young seedlings are really susceptible to if they sit for a long time in wet soil. Of course, the handle, it's really great, and it doubles up as a harvest basket, which is pretty cool. Now, each seed tray is made out of solid plastic, and the whole setup actually is made out of the same plastic that the GreenStalk is made from. It's this flexible, really strong, UV resistant plastic, and I know it's going to last for years and years and years because my GreenStalks are, and I leave this stuff around all over in my garden, so that's really important with our hot California sun to protect it from getting brittle and breaking. So this is like a one-time purchase. You buy it once, you have it forever, just like your GreenStalks. Now, each of these has a large hole at the bottom, and so when your plug is ready to be transplanted, all you need to do is stick your finger up and pop the plug right up, which is really convenient. And then you'll also see these slits on the side. Now, that is for something called air pruning. You know how when seedlings have been sitting in a small pot for a long time, the roots tend to curl around? Well, they won't do that with this kind of setup because they will actually grow through and they will become air roots and they'll sort of prune themselves. So I'll show you actually one setup that I've got where the roots are doing just that. And all of the newer seed starting kits that are coming out these days that I've seen, the really high quality ones, have this air pruning setup because it really works so well to raise healthy seedlings. All right, are we ready to do some planning? So what I'm going to show you is just a few guiding principles on how I think about planning my GreenStalks, and then I'm going to plan one out for you so you see how I do it, and hopefully that'll give you an idea on how to plan your GreenStalks as well. Now, know that this is my way of doing it. I'm following some of the general principles, obviously, that GreenStalk recommends, but I have got my setup a little bit differently. Let me show you. You'll see that my GreenStalks are set up so that they've got larger 10-inch original tiers at the bottom and smaller ones on the top, and I've got that for all my GreenStalks. I actually purchased 4 GreenStalks altogether, and I divvied them up this way, and now I've got 5. So on an average, I've got maybe 2 to 3 large tiers at the bottom and 1 to 2 smaller tiers at the top. So that really impacts how I plan my GreenStalks as well. I know you guys love looking at GreenStalks, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to show you how they are doing. And when I show people this GreenStalk tower with the peas on the top, everyone wants to know, hey, where'd you get that trellis from? Well, this is actually not a GreenStalk product. I wish GreenStalk will come up with a trellis. I'm sure they're working on it. They've got the plant support like they've got in that GreenStalk over there, but that's not the same as a trellis. Trellises are really helpful to grow things vertically, and this is what's called a Texas tomato cage, and I got it from next door. You can actually buy these online, and you can actually DIY this stuff as well using something like cattle panels, just twist it around and stick it in. Got a video on how I direct sowed this GreenStalk, and look at this, you guys. Can you believe how large this broccoli plant is? My GreenStalks, I just love them. They're looking so pretty. Okay, let's go ahead and plan our GreenStalk. But before we do that, if you're getting value from this video, folks, I sure would appreciate a big thumbs up. It really helps the video spread. If you're watching this video in the 3rd week of January, there's a sale going on the seed starting kits starting January 23rd. So use my affiliate link in the description, and for an additional $10 off, use my coupon code GREENLOVE10. Okay, let's do some planning. So when I think about how to organize my GreenStalks when I plan for it, there are some guiding principles that I use. Now, a couple of them are in the book already. There's the tip from Jack, the inventor, which basically says that if you're planting in the GreenStalk, the larger plants need to go at the bottom, which is a common sense thing. If you've got plants that are going to be shading out the plants below it, you're better off putting them on the lower tiers. And then another note over here is that anything planted in the leaf can also be planted in the original. And I think that's fair, absolutely. But my counter to that is, why do you want to waste an original tier which holds a lot more soil with plants that you could grow in a leaf? So sidebar, when people ask me, should I be getting a leaf tier GreenStalk or should I get an original GreenStalk, I usually advise them to start with the leaf tier GreenStalk, and then the next GreenStalk can be the original. And the reason why I do that is because I did it that way and it worked out really, really well. So I started with the 7 tier because I wanted to grow strawberries. Turned out I grew a lot of things other than strawberries in it, and I found that I could grow a lot of things in the 7 tier GreenStalk. Number one, there are a lot more pockets, so you can grow a lot more plants, but also because you have such good soil in the GreenStalk, and because you fertilize so often and you water it well and you just take care of it better, you can grow a lot of plants in very little soil. However, if you're planning on mostly growing summer veggies like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and cucumbers, then you're better off getting the original, which has 10 inches and hence a lot more soil, and those larger plants obviously will grow better in that. But if you're planning to get several GreenStalks over time, do consider starting with the leaf tier and then graduating to the original. And then you can also do what I did, which is mix and match and bring it to just the perfect height for your liking. Okay, let's talk about the original guiding principles. Obviously, if you are growing large plants, bottom tier, and then if you're growing summer veggies for the most part, yeah, you want to be using the original. And then I also would highly recommend that you only grow dwarf varieties. So tomatoes, as an example, grow dwarf variety or micro tomatoes. Many summer veggies can be bought in dwarf varieties or patio varieties. I know a lot of places that sell dwarf varieties. Some of my favorites are Renee's Garden, M.I. Gardner, Baker Creek. They all sell micro and dwarf tomatoes, as well as eggplants, as well as okra, as well as cucumbers, bush cucumbers. All of those things will do really well in the GreenStalk. Don't get the large indeterminate tomatoes. I mean, they just grow really big, unwieldy. You can't manage them, you can't trellis them well, and they will just look ugly. Some more principles for your original GreenStalk. If you're growing climbing veggies, I recommend no more than one type. So if you're growing cucumbers, for example, let that be the only type of climbing veggie that you're planting in one GreenStalk. Don't plant cucumbers and cantaloupe and beans. It just gets confusing and it looks messy. So stick to one and have different climbing plants in different GreenStalks. Yeah, you do need more than one GreenStalk. Okay, some guiding principles for the leaf. You want to plant shallow-rooted plants. So think about things like lettuce and spinach and bok choy, herbs, shallow-rooted flowers. All of those work really well in the leaf tier. If you're planning on planting mint, I suggest that you dedicate an entire tier to mint, because it will crowd out everything else and it will hog every space that it can get. Oh, one more important thing. If you're thinking about growing herbs in your leaf tier GreenStalk, then consider the watering needs of the herbs. So if you're growing things, for example, like lavender or sage or rosemary, they don't require a lot of water. And if you're planting them next to basil and parsley or veggies like bok choy that require a lot of water, it's going to be imbalanced, and the herbs that require drier soil are not going to do well. So I actually suggest that you keep those herbs out of the GreenStalk, even though they are recommended and they'll probably do okay. They won't thrive as much as plants that you will be paying attention to and giving a lot of water and nutrients, because those plants, the drier plants, just don't require a lot of attention, and the GreenStalk gets a lot of attention. And then I do recommend that you plant your climbers like peas on the topmost tier. You can do leaf or original, but if you can do a makeshift kind of a Trellis until GreenStalk has one that they make specifically for GreenStalk, which will probably be way better than anything that you can DIY. You're better off actually growing climbers in the topmost. And I've actually got a video where I show you several options on how to do DIY trellising, and I'll put a link to that as well. Okay, now that we've got some of the general guiding principles laid out for both the original as well as the leaf, let's go ahead and design one of my GreenStalks for the summer so you can get some ideas on how to do it for your own. Okay, so let's talk about how I design my GreenStalks. First off, the design sheet that comes with the seed starter kit, it's not really to design your GreenStalk layout, it is how you want to organize your seeds in your seed tray and kind of cross-reference. So I thought I could use this for designing, but it's not really the purpose of this. What I will be using instead is a template that they provided a long time ago with 7 of those tiers on a single page, and that actually is what I'm going to be using, plus this book. The book that comes with pretty much any GreenStalk setup box that you buy, and it's got all of the plants that can be grown in the original and all of the plants that can be grown in the leaf tier. So let me show you how I do it online. So I downloaded the PDF with the design sheet in it, and I snapshotted it. I hope that's appropriate. And I put it on Canva, which is a free software that anyone can download and use. And then I used Canva to sort of choose the shapes of the vegetables that I wanted to, and then I put them in the various pockets. Okay, so number 1 here is my bottommost tier. In that I've put my tomatoes, which are among my biggest plants, and I have interspersed them with basil because I want no more than 3 dwarf tomatoes in this tier. And basil and tomato, they're just best friends, they're best companions and great in pasta sauce together. The next level up, I'm going to be growing coleus, and I'll make sure that the coleus is not directly above the tomato because they're both sort of big leafed plants, and you want to put the big leafed plants in the lower tiers as we discussed earlier. But I'm also putting okra in this tier, and okra has skinny leaves and it's a tallish plant, so it shouldn't really have any problem pushing through any of the tomato leaves that are coming up from the bottom tier and going straight up. And then the next tier above that, I'm going to put my peppers. And I'm going to be growing some compact pepper varieties, some of those nice hot peppers like Thai and Buena Mulata, which is a beautiful purple pepper. And I won't be planting things like jalapeno, capsicum. Those plants tend to be much larger unless you can get some dwarf varieties. And then, of course, I've got my single climber of choice, like I talked about earlier. I'm going to be growing cucumbers in this tier, and I'm going to be putting little stakes out of these cucumber tiers to hold on to them as they start to grow. You can also use a plant support around it, but then eventually the cucumber plant is going to need to grow onto something taller. Or you can just have it hang over the plant support. I guess that would work fine as well. I am going to trellis it up. And then it starts to get to the smaller plants. Now, number 4 and number 5 over here are going to be leaf tiers. The first 3 that I just showed you are going to be original tiers, and that's kind of how I've organized mine. The bottom ones are original, the upper ones are leaf. And I'm going to be growing flowers, of course, marigolds. Marigolds are almost in all my GreenStalks. And then I'm growing kale. Kale grows throughout the summer really well in my hot California climate, so it's always got a place in my garden and in my GreenStalk. And then finally, the uppermost tier, I'm going to be planting nasturtiums. Now, these are going to cascade down the edge of the GreenStalk, and of course, they're going to shade a bunch of things, but I don't care. They look beautiful. And they are going to be interspersed with thyme, and thyme tends to push out these tall, spiky, pretty flowers that look so majestic on top of the GreenStalk. So this is one way of organizing your GreenStalk, folks, and I frankly am doing it the first time this way, and I am actually really pleased at how easy it was. I've been sort of a little more chaotic in the past, but I find that doing GreenStalks in an organized way results in not just a more productive GreenStalk, but also a much prettier GreenStalk. And with the GreenStalk, it's a lot about the beauty for me. It brings me so much joy. And of course, everything grows better in the GreenStalk, as I always say, so I got to keep that in mind as I plan as well. Okay, now let's talk about some of the questions that I had going into this before I got this set up and what answers I kind of think I have right now for them. So the first question that I had was, this shape is not your standard 1020 shape. So is this going to fit nicely in my grow station setup? Let me show you. This is what it looks like on my standard shelf, which is roughly 4 feet long and about 1.5 feet wide. So as you can see, the standard 1020 trays, you can fit 4 of them on this shelf. And with the GreenStalk tray, it occupies roughly the space of about 2 trays. And it is a little bit shorter. So you see how these trays tend to overhang on this shelf, but this one actually fits quite perfectly. Now, to be perfectly honest, I do not typically align my trays this way because this overhang, the seedlings that are on the edge, do not get proper access to the lighting above. And it's so important for seedlings to get lighting. And I usually put my trays this way. So that way they've got direct access to the light coming down here. Now, because the GreenStalk tray does not have any overhang issues and fits so perfectly, yep, I can put the whole thing in here without worrying about seedlings not getting access to light. Now, when I do it this way and I put my seedling containers in here, these are from Bootstrap Farmer, I can fit 4 times 8, which is 32 cups in this tray. In the GreenStalk tray, however, it's 6 times 6. I can fit 36 seedlings in this. So I think actually that is better. However, if you are going to be putting your trays this way and you're okay with coming every once in a while and sort of moving things around so that your seedlings on the edge get proper access to light, then you can fit 32 plus 32, 64 seed cell trays, which is better than 36. So it's really up to you what kind of appetite you have for moving your seedling cups around. The next question had to do with humidity domes. Now, when I start my seeds, I like to cover it with some kind of plastic, either a plastic bag or a humidity dome. And I've got humidity domes that I've purchased for most of my 1020 trays that I use when I'm starting the seeds. Now, when the seeds start to germinate, I remove them because they don't need them anymore. But while they are germinating, it helps to have that humidity. So I understand that GreenStalk may be working on a dome. I read somewhere, maybe it's a rumor, not really sure. But in the meanwhile, you can use really anything that you have. You can use, like I said, a plastic bag to cover this, or you can use any of these little clamshell kinds of trays. Works really well. I've got some of these domes that I've got from another seed starting setup. Something like this, really, it's not a big deal. It'll be nice to have those domes fitting perfectly over this, but in the meanwhile, it's no showstopper at all. Okay, so I wanted to show you that plant with the air pruning that I was talking about. So this thing is, obviously, it's not a GreenStalk product, but it has slits on the side. You can't quite see them over here, but it's got slits at the side. And look at the roots, you guys. Yeah, roots like growing out of slits. And the reason why they're growing like this, like crazy, is because I often have water here because I water from the top and then the excess water sort of drains into this and then the roots reach into it to grab the water. And yeah, they're such healthy roots. Look how white they are. And this plant obviously is growing really, really well. So yeah, roots like slits, they like airflow and they grow so much healthier when they've got more airflow, and that is what these slits are going to help with as well. Okay, so remember those links I promised to the video where I show you how to DIY trellis your GreenStalk as well as how to direct sow your GreenStalk? Well, the links are right here and here. And do check out a playlist that I have in my channel on all things GreenStalk. I think you'll find some pretty interesting videos in there. Happy gardening!